View from the Gutters, episode 79. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Hawaiian Dick Volume 1, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 4740.
Let's go.
I'm ready.
I'm rapidly decompressing.
All right.
I think you mean decomposing.
Episode 134, View from the Gutters.
I'm grop near nerf.
It's our 100th anniversary special.
It's going to be in like a year and a half, 130.
It's not going to be in the far-flung future?
No, not really.
Okay, I'm not grop.
Actually, it's going to be in almost exactly a year.
Yeah, that's true.
But this is actually episode 79.
Sure, wow.
So,
way to blow.
We are not...
Yeah, I totally blew our cover.
Wow, people thought we had that much recorded into the future. Like, they are so on top of their game.
No, we're actually like a year ahead on recording. Yeah. We're just releasing these one at a time, and we've got it out of order.
We record one a day.
We are so good that we have recorded episodes on shit that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
And we've somehow styled our banter so that it exactly conforms to the future that will happen.
Yeah, we're really good. It's a pro show. That's what I would say. Anyway, I'm Andrew Chard.
I am Joe Brady.
I am Tobiah Panshin.
And I'm Kid Reynolds.
Oh, yeah. Good Brant couldn't make it tonight. He's sick, but...
Yeah, his family's got a bug. Poor Brant.
He misses all of you dearly. And hopefully you didn't just turn off the episode because Brant's not here.
That's what I would do.
We shouldn't have told them.
What, just assume I just edit him in?
Maybe he just didn't say his name today.
Edit him in saying, and I'm Brant Gilhan Eddy, and then he doesn't say anything for the rest of the episode and be like, Brant was weirdly quiet on that episode.
We should just have him record some sound bites so we can throw him in when he's not here.
Yeah.
The Brant soundboard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll build one of those.
While you're at it, you should build a soundboard out of all of Joe's grunts and hollers.
Yeah, I could do that.
I cannot be replicated.
That sounds a lot easier, actually.
Yeah, honestly.
Just press a different button and a different sound plays.
I think we can outsource Joe entirely if we put our minds to it.
I feel like, first of all, fuck you guys. Second of all...
There's a soundbite right there.
I want to warn our listeners that I'm going to be fucking yawning a lot on this episode, so you're going to have to deal.
I'll try to cut you out.
Cut me out when I'm yawn. I'm tired. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
It's been a long, hot day.
It has, in fact.
Yeah, Joe doesn't usually work on Mondays.
No, I don't. I work today because I'm taking tomorrow off to bring Audrey to the airport so she can go and see my parents.
So she can go away.
Again.
Thank God. I mean, oh no, you'll miss her.
I don't know.
You won't.
She's been back for a few days. I mean, I'm kind of ready for her to go again. No, I do miss her because every time she goes and comes back, she gets bigger.
She has gotten remarkably tall in the last year.
Yeah,
have you seen her since she's been back?
Yeah, I saw her on Sunday.
Yeah, she's 5'8", and she's 12.
Yeah, she's gonna be taller than I am.
She's gonna be taller than all of us.
Isn't she already taller than you?
No, I'm 5'10". She's almost as tall
She's
as
probably
I am at 12 years old.
I think she'll get to be 5'10". I don't know that she'll get taller than 5'10", because I have a friend that's 6'1", and by the time she was Audrey's age, she was pretty close to being 6 foot.
Yeah.
So you're the same height as Byrd.
I don't know who that is.
In the book we just read.
Oh, cool. Yes.
Yes. Let's talk about the book that we just read.
I don't know who that is.
What
did we read?
I am eager to talk about Hawaiian.
You are
Dick.
so not. You texted me earlier and you were like, I have nothing to say about
I don't want to be on the episode.
That is a gross misrepresentation of my position.
That's how I read it. Well, anyway, I recommended it, so I'm going to talk about it first.
No, please do. Go.
So,
do it now.
I read this book initially 6 years ago. When I first started working at the comic book store I was working at, I was like, oh, cool, this looks different than stuff that I've seen. I'm going to check this out. And what I really like about it, as far as it being different than other comics, because that's what drew me to it, the difference, is I feel like this is a very strong gateway comic. I think if you come at stuff from TV detectives, detective novels, stuff that has kind of a supernatural bend to it. Like, there's a little bit of X-Files you could kind of see as sort of a crossover, although the partnership obviously is a lot different, and the subject matter of like what they're researching is different, obviously. But to me, it's just a fun little genre book about detectives and the supernatural crossing over. And he's not a supernatural detective. That's something I really liked, because often when you see this kind of stuff, he's like Dresden Files-y or some kind of spirit detective, Dr. Occult, whatever. And it's like, no, he's just like a regular detective, but there happen to be ghosts around. But he still has a case to solve. I just think it's a fun book as a great gateway comic, and I think that the art really drew me to it. And although I still really, really like the art, digital art and digital painting in the last, 8 years has come so far as the technology is concerned. So while I really appreciate this still and like what he was doing, his kind of building layers of brushes on top of one another, I feel like there are people that are doing a more sophisticated version of this now. But I don't think
that's technology advancing.
Yeah, and I think it's people like being inspired by stuff like this to be able to do what they're doing. So, I mean, I'm sure this influenced some colorists out there because it was very different. It was a different use of the technology that everyone was using. There's no like cutting of highlights in Photoshop in this. There's no like, oh, this is where the highlight's going to be, and I'll fill that in completely. It's all him painting with different brushes, like round, soft edge brushes over the top of it.
Yeah, and it was originally going to be a black and white book.
Yeah.
But then something happened, and he was like, okay, sure.
And I like the art and colors. I think it's good. I mean, he was nominated for Best Colorist for 3 years in a row at the Eisners, so that shows what kind of respect the community had for him at the time. And I think this book kind of got lost by time, in a way. It was almost before its time as far as like the Image renaissance happening. Like this happened right when Image was starting to pick up steam.
It definitely feels like a book that would come out today, just in terms of the content that Image is putting out. Obviously, it's lacking a lot of the polish that you're seeing in some of the Image books now, but it's definitely tonally within the range of what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think for, 8 years ago when this came out, it was like really pushing the boundaries of what Image was putting out, because they were still putting out a lot of stuff like Savage Dragon and Spawn, and like those were their big books. Walking Dead and Invincible were still kind of like beginning to grow their fan base at that time, so I feel like...
Now, what year did this first come out? I thought it was 2002.
I think that's right.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually 12 years
12 years ago. That's even longer ago than I thought, so...
But then they've been coming out with new
versions of the trades.
Well, new stories every few years. They put out another thing, and book 4 is starting up this year.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
I haven't read book 3 yet, besides probably like the first issue. And I didn't read the second trade. I was tempted to, and I didn't recommend the second trade because I kind of felt like it might be a little redundant, and it's also a different artist. So it might be a little redundant as far as like, oh, let's read 2 crime stories back to back. Because the first one is kind of its own contained thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's good to remember books like this, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have not heard of it as far as Image books go. So that's definitely
it's hard to find, because searching for Hawaiian Dick on the internet is not a good idea.
Dude, it's totally safe. What are you talking about? Just like when you search My Little Pony with the safe search off.
There's nothing bad on the internet.
Yeah, it's fine.
Now, this book actually, it was pretty hard to track down information about it. I mean, I usually kind of try and research the books that we're reading a little bit, and it was hard to even turn up anything on this book.
It is still in print from Diamond, though, which is good to know. You can still
the
get
Amazon link, even with safe search on, was still on like the 4th page of Google results.
Ah.
So, like, it was really hard to find.
Then go to your LCS and get it from Diamond. Make them order it from Diamond for you, because that's how I read it, was just in the trade from an LCS.
That's local comic shop for all of you that don't know.
Yeah.
Friendly local comic shop.
Yeah. Celsius.
Joe, what did you think about the book?
So I have to say that on the whole, I enjoyed this. I think I had a few.
Wait, Joe. Would you say that Hawaiian Dick felt pretty good on the whole?
No, I would not say that, Seth Green from fucking Austin Powers. Thank you for telling a fucking 10-year-old joke.
You do not get to criticize anybody for retelling jokes.
I do. I get to criticize you for it. Because I can criticize you for anything.
Well, he's not going to criticize himself.
No, clearly not. Everything I do is gold.
I criticize myself a lot.
Hey
guys, welcome to another horrible pitch by Kay.
Yeah, but Joe wouldn't criticize himself.
No.
True.
He's not that kind of man.
No.
He's not self-effacing
I mean,
at all.
at least not while I was, Yeah.
Not while you were enjoying Hawaiian Dick anyway.
That's true. And I did enjoy the length and no, I'm just taking that as far as it can go.
Yes, you were. You were taking it as far as
I
it could
did
go.
take it as far as it could go. The Hawaiian Dick, that
We're
is.
5. 5 years old.
You
Yeah.
went
We
deep
are
with
5
that.
years old.
Yeah,
You went
really-
deep with that one.
Yeah.
The Hawaiian Dick. I went
Yes.
deep with the
Yeah,
Hawaiian
no,
Dick.
we
I'm
get
just
it.
saying
We
that.
get it, we get it,
is-
guys.
For anybody who didn't get it,
What we're saying...
we're making penis jokes.
What we're saying is Joe took a penis in the butt.
in the butt. That's.
I don't know why that's funny. Or maybe in the mouth.
Like, I could have
Come
been
on.
out too.
Kevin Smith, dick and fart jokes. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's what sells.
It's our bread and butter.
Is it?
No.
Okay.
You don't butter your toast
so-
with dick.
I don't. I should, though.
I thought there was a lot of good in this book. I think I would have liked it a lot more had there been another issue. I felt like some of the transitions were maybe done a little abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the feel overall is a really nice homage to this much more like Chandler or Hammett-esque type of storytelling, which was very bare bones. They managed to fit in a lot of description and not a lot of words, which was definitely like a big part of the type of writing they did, which was in counterpart to this kind of like Arthur Conan Doyle kind of like very lush and visual storytelling. The American mysteries like Hammett and Chandler and Ross McDonald and people like that.
I would call it like workmanship writing.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it
very
did
like
its job and nothing more.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't like fucking, this it's
There's no
it's
flowery
very like
prose.
here is the frame and here is the story hung on the frame and it gives you enough information to move the story along, but largely it's the way that it's written that gives you the feel for the environment.
Something, though, that's I think is worthy to note, the difference between this and that kind of writing, and I respect this book for a lot, is the detective trope of the internal monologue of
Yes.
the detective is something that we see everywhere, and this chose to omit that.
Which-
So we never get to see what Byrd is thinking, which I really appreciate. It's like the difference between watching... what is that movie? Blade Runner, director's cut versus theatrical
Versus
cut,
the
where they
yeah.
cut out the narrative, the internal monologue.
And it does pack a greater punch because
Yeah.
the purpose of the internal monologue was to kind of it was the way you interacted with the detective, because these were not super observant like computers that were made to solve mysteries. These were guys that blundered around face first a lot of times into fucking fists that just kind of teased out what was going on just through sheer tenacity. And I like that feel in this book. I like that Byrd is not like he's just like, well, I'm going to go see this guy. I'm going to go see this guy, which is a big part of that genre. That being said, like I said, a lot of the transitions I felt were a little abrupt. And because I enjoyed the story, I would have liked to see a little bit more groundwork done there. Like I would have liked to see a little expansion on some of the connections and on some of not necessarily his thought process, because I agree with you. I really like that they omitted the dialogue, because it kind of added a little bit to the kind of air of suspense of the story, like what was going to happen next.
Well, I like that a lot of characters know things that you as an audience don't know.
Don't know, absolutely.
And I like that they omit that from you, because so often it's the opposite.
Yeah.
You know stuff that the character doesn't know, and you're like, oh, when is he going to find out?
Yeah, exactly.
And especially in detective fiction and stuff. I also liked how omitting the narration and the internal monologue forces the art to do more work. Unfortunately, a lot of times I think the art isn't up to the task, and that's what makes some of those traditions, like the transitions and action sequences, not work as strong as they could have.
And I think where it falls apart to me is that there are, so in the Maltese Falcon, for instance, right, there are scenes that don't take up a lot of time, but that give you an idea of where Sam Spade is coming from, where he's been, who he was, and kind of who he is now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they do that a little bit here, but there's a scene right in the beginning where he immediately goes to Graves after getting the phone call, and it's somewhat confusing because, like, why does he go straight there? And then that conversation...
Well, he doesn't, though. That's the other thing.
And that's the thing. It's like...
He went and did a bunch of research and detective work, and they don't show you any of that.
And that's... I would have liked maybe a couple of panels of just showing that, because I think that's where graphic storytelling has an edge on prose, is that you don't have to take the time to think, okay, now I have to write how he went to the library and how he went to the public records department. You can just fucking show us, take 2 or 3 panels and just be like, do something cool, because the art, I think here, it's kind of, the artist is kind of a little bit in over his head.
This is their first graphic work.
Right.
Ever.
And so that's kind of, I think you can tell, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I think there's a lot of heart here. I think it gets in over its head a few times, but it never to the point where I want to write off the characters. Like I walked away from this going, I want to know more.
Well,
I would have liked this to be a couple issues longer.
Yeah, I could see that.
And flesh out like Kahami's story a little, the Moe's story a little.
I mean, it's something that they kind of intended to do in later stories, was like, you'll get more of these characters.
Absolutely.
But even in that first story, you could have laid more groundwork.
I think, there was more groundwork there in the story.
I compare this, the first opening page I really love, where it's just like him in his house having a drink, putting the Billie Holiday record on, just like hanging out in his house, no words. And then the phone rings, and he starts, he has part of a one-sided conversation. And then it immediately it kicks into the story where he goes to see, what's his name? Graves. Yeah. Compare that to a really, I think, phenomenal crime fiction graphic novel, Parker the Hunter, where they take 15 pages or so before there's any real dialogue.
No, absolutely.
Of just, setting the scene, showing Parker just walking around and doing kind of what he does, and the city, and giving you this kind of establishing shot, like what would be opening credits of a movie. Kind of
right. I mean, that atmosphere that they work Stark works so hard to maintain in those Parker books, and that is so essential. I think they come so close in Hawaiian Dick to nailing that. And it's just missing these little things. And I really think, I don't know, I was trying to think today on my way here, did this need 1 more issue or 2 more issues? And I think I settled on 1. I don't think it's missing enough to fill 2 full issues. But
it just needed a little room to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. And like, this is so bare bones that like, I feel like some of the transitions become off-putting. There should be a little bit more plotting going on, not like plotting, but like plodding, like the detective kind of going from place to place and trying to kind of wiggle this board loose or pull on this string.
Something that's a good trope in the crime fiction too is like he'll go talk to somebody because he knows it'll make them mad. To try to get them
to shake something loose,
just to see. He'll like go talk to someone he's not supposed to talk to, just to see who comes after him, and be like, okay, they're interested in the case. Like, I didn't know that before, and now I do. And there's not really enough of that in this book. Like everybody just kind of comes to Byrd,
and especially since I think the coolest element for me was this like supernatural element where everybody's kind of like, did that just happen? Yeah. Like, was that just a thing that happened? And that's kind of what makes me want to read more, because as you said, I like the idea of a detective that's not like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this phenomenon, but like, I should probably wrap this up quick because I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. Like, we're not just worrying about gun malls and mobsters and tricky shit like that. I have to worry about this fucking, like, these night marchers and zombies and weird shit that I don't even know about.
Old, scary Hawaiian ladies.
Yeah, so
Talking
like...
to ghosts in a bar where when they drink the whiskey, it ends up on
I
the
love that
below.
short story. Oh, that was great.
A lot of those shorts I thought was super cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I think I read this, and while I wasn't floored, I liked it enough to go. I mean, for a freshman effort, first, coming right out of the gate, doing something this is pretty fucking ambitious, and I think that to do this right out of the gate, it's pretty ballsy, and I have a lot of respect for that. So, I mean, there's definitely, I think, a few missteps, but I don't think they're not so great that it throws off my enjoyment of the story as a complete entity.
I think it didn't age as well as I hoped it would have.
I think there's that too.
To me.
Yeah. I think that we talk a lot about the decompressed nature of storytelling, and I felt like this was kind of... I felt like they should have decompressed this a little bit. They should have let it out to air. And... but, I mean, other than that, I really like the art. I think that sometimes, it is a little... There are times when you can tell the artist, who I cannot remember.
Griffin, was that the last name? No, it's something like
that.
Yeah,
or...
Steven Griffin.
Griffin, yeah.
He does kind of get a little... You can tell he was kind of getting it out, you know. But I think the art style on this book is is kind of you don't see it anywhere. You don't see people doing art like this in comic books, and I really liked it. I think it's a feast for the eyes. I think the colors are right on, and I really, for the most part, like the character designs. But I think this was a book that if this was going on monthly, a few years afterwards, they would have ironed out all the kinks and they would have been just knocking them out, because I can see this being a series that if they had decided, rather than just kind of releasing a story here and there, which I think is a good way to do it. I also think it kind of limits your ability to kind of get better because you're getting better slower.
Yeah.
But I can definitely, I'm interested in reading the second and third ones now and seeing have they improved? Have they gotten a chance to kind of...
They feel a lot different, so...
Yeah.
It's interesting to check out. Cade, what were your thoughts kind of on this book?
So the first thing that stuck out to me was how relaxed it felt. It, like you said with the opening page, like he's just chilling at home, doing the stuff. Like I said before, I do wish that there had been more. Like it left a lot of things that you wish you could have grabbed onto and learned more about.
Yeah.
But we didn't really get that. And I think I think I would have liked that better if there had been more, like if it had been coming out more constantly, like a book a year. No, and they were doing like... different stories where you could see the characters again, maybe in different situations. Because, like, at the end, they do leave that whole, like, Byrd investigations starting up. And he asks her to be his new Girl Friday, and she's like, executive assistant sounds better. And, like... I feel like at the end there, they set up a really good point to just offshoot more stories. It doesn't matter, like, what timeline they're in, or, like, they don't have to be chronological. Like, from there, they could run any number of stories.
I think that would have been really cool, is if after this first trade, they went to, like, a weekly series, but they would always put, like, the date at the beginning of every issue, and you're like, oh, this is when he's older, and this is when this is his first case, or this is
or
like
not even
have
a date, but just be like, this takes place sometime after they started the investigations, and And so you can like read them in any order. I thought that'd be kind of a cool thing, but I would like to track down the rest of them.
Yeah.
The second and third trades, and check those out. I didn't really get a chance to. I was.
You're right. It is kind of hard to find. The second one is, I believe, also in print from Diamond, but I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen the third trade. So.
Okay. But yeah, the writer was, what was it? B.
Claymore.
B. Claymore. A lot of potential there.
Well, he's gone on to write a lot of other stuff. Like, he's pretty prolific as far as indie creators go. I'm pretty sure he was one of the original writers at the 4-Star Comic Studio, the Chicago studio, with like Mike Norton and Tim Seeley and all those guys that were doing those cool digital comics where you could like peel away the colors and then the inks and just see the pencils. You could get rid of the letters. They weren't CBZ files. They were like their own specific file, and they were doing double features for $1 every other week, I think. And so B. Claymore would write some of the stories in there. There was like a double feature science book, double feature horror book.
I know I've heard his name a lot before.
Yeah.
I don't recall off the top of my head what he's written, though.
Yeah, I did go to his website and read some of his blog stuff, but most of the posts were back in 2008, 2009.
Yeah, a lot of people like moved from blogs to Twitter and Tumblr and all that stuff, so but a lot of websites just kind of...
He did talk a little bit about Hawaiian Dick being featured on a top 100 list.
Yeah.
And like some of the... He had some of the unpublished material that never got put into a trade on the website as well.
Nice.
Because he was like, these were some things we did in the very beginning, but we didn't put them in the end of the first trade, and then they got skipped over for the end of the second trade. And so I'm just going to put them on here because I don't know if they'll ever be put in a trade.
Yeah,
so,
cool. Very cool.
So that was pretty cool. Other than that, I loved the back matter of this book.
Oh, yeah.
I loved seeing their emails to each other.
Yeah.
And seeing like exactly what they were talking about because they'd put the art on the same page as well.
Yeah, I liked the design, all the different character design pages. I liked the text piece. I thought that was interesting. And the cocktail recipes, which I mentioned in the pitch, was like one of my favorite parts. And then it has kind of that little story in and of itself in the cocktail recipes. It's like he sees the hot girl, he goes to talk to her, his boyfriend fights her, and then there's like the drink where he's got his bag of ice on his head because he got beat up. I thought that was a clever way to do that.
Yeah, I like that.
And one was like the sexy redhead.
Yeah.
And then like two later it was like the liver punch.
Yeah. Yeah, and for $10 for the trade, like it's a really good deal because it's an image first. So
yeah, I mean you pay that much for the drink recipes, right?
Yeah, almost, yeah. And there's a lot of material there. There's like 5 issues and plus a bunch of back matter, so it feels pretty worth it.
Well, 3 issues.
Were they 3?
Yeah, I thought it was 4.
The first trade?
Yeah.
I thought it was 4.
Oh.
Is it 4? I thought it was 5. I don't know why.
I thought it said reprinting issues 1 through 3.
Yeah. They were longer if it was only 3, but
no, it was 4.
It's like 100-something pages.
Yeah. It's a good length.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think for $10 image first, it's definitely cool. And I think if you're a fan of detective stories at all, it's like at least worth checking out.
Yep.
So, Toby, what did you think about this one?
I have mixed opinions on this.
I think we all kind of did.
Yeah, and it's not the usual thing where it's like, oh, I hated this thing and it totally ruined my reading of the story. And I did kind of put out like, hey, if we've got 4 other people for the show, I could sit out on this one and it would just make things a little bit easier. But then, of course, Brant wasn't feeling well, so I came to be on it. And part of the reason that I felt like I really didn't have much to say was because I didn't hate this by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I had a hard time thinking, like, what would I actually want to critique about this book? Because it is very competently put together. I like a lot of elements of the art, particularly the color and the shading, especially the background work. I was less fond of the characters because they felt very static to me in the way that Jonathan Luna's art feels static.
Mm-hmm.
Although I did like Moe's like little hat that he was always wearing. I thought
it was a different time. It was the 50s. Everybody wore hats.
Yeah.
Hats.
Even Bond wore
a hat. And then there was that little back matter story where the tiki guy starts making the statues out of his hat, and I love that.
I really like the back matter, like one page stories that were kind of like a little bit funny. Like they very much had that old Sunday comic book or comic strip, like newspaper comic strip cadence to them.
Yeah, like old Dick Tracy strips or something.
Yeah. So I really liked that, but I think I agree with a lot of what Joe said in terms of I wanted more out of this story, and not necessarily more pages, but just more story. Like I really felt like they went from, oh, ghosts and goblins and whatever, that's not real, haha, to, oh, there's zombies and ghosts and crazy witches and shit all around. Mm-hmm. And there's never that kind of moment where they go, oh, crap, all of this is real. He's just kind of like, well, that's a thing that happened.
Yeah, they just kind of run away.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, her body's gone. And they're not like, somebody must have took her.
Yeah.
They're like, no, she got up and left. That's a thing that just happened. And they're like, they never have that kind of moment of revelation where they're like, oh no, things are crazier than we ever thought. Like he never went and really tried to explore like what are the origins of these things. I mean, he kind of asked like that old lady at one point, but it was more in the context of going like, well, your daughter's a zombie and I want to find her.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of the difference between like a supernatural detective and a detective in a supernatural world. You know, like he doesn't really care about the supernatural part of it.
Right.
Like he has a job to do.
That seems weird. Like he doesn't even go like, oh wow, like I have to totally like reassess what my beliefs are.
And I think
he just kind of takes it for granted that that's a thing that happens.
And I feel somewhere in the middle of what I think the points that both of you are making. Like I definitely see what Chart is saying, and I think that's one of the things that marks Byrd as this specific kind of detective. Is he's like, oh, these night marchers, they're real. I still have a job to do, though, so I'm going to concentrate on that and fucking deal with that shit later. And so I like that. On the other hand, it would have been nice to have a little bit more build up to that moment. And like a little bit more of what I think of as like Scooby-Dooing, where you're like, you have the kind of atmosphere and you're like, what was that noise? Just like little things like that. And so I think...
Yeah, like, when I read the scene with the car where she disappeared, I kind of got the vibe where they were just like, what the fuck? Like, they didn't have an idea that she got up and left. They were just like, something is not right here.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that way.
But it didn't, it could have been more, it could have been fleshed out a little bit more, and they could have been more like, oh, what could have happened? Like, who took her?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I wanted things to be a little bit more fleshed out. Yeah. I wanted them to go in a little bit more... Like you said, it kind of into his thought process. Mm-hmm. Like he's very much this blank slate.
Yeah.
So I had I had a few complaints on that order, and to be perfectly frank, like this just isn't the kind of story that interests me. Like I'm not big into crime fiction or detective fiction. Like I was reading through the story and I'm like, okay, stuff is happening, more stuff is happening, more stuff is happening, and I never had that moment where I was like, oh my god, that's so cool, that's crazy, what's going to happen next? Like. I never got invested in the story. It was just kind of this thing that was happening in front of me. And I got to the end and I was like, all right, that was sure a thing.
Yeah.
And like I didn't feel like I really had anything incredibly bad to say about it. I didn't feel like I had anything incredibly good to say about it either. Like it's and I agree with what you guys said. Like it's very well put together. There's a lot of great stuff about the art. Obviously, these guys have gone on to do more better stuff since then. Mm-hmm. This story just did not affect me.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, like that's something that I always really enjoy about detective fiction is that it's like there aren't really big wow moments. You just kind of like follow this detective along on an adventure, and that's kind of what I like because I just like.
Well, there's the moment where like the shoe drops, and you're like, I figured out what happened.
But normally in I think in well-written crime fiction, like, it's this weird counterpoint to like normal fiction where you're like, oh shit, I just figured it out. And I think in like one of the marks of well-written crime fiction is when that moment happens, you're like, oh shit, I feel awful. It's like,
I guess a part of it is that normally in crime fiction, like there's the crime and you know what the crime was.
Yeah.
And it's a process of trying to put together how it happened and why and who's responsible. I feel like this got overshadowed by the whole she's a zombie thing where it's like,
fair.
You know, trying to figure out who did it and why becomes secondary to the fact that we now have a corpse walking around. And neither of those things really gets played up on the level that it deserves.
I think that, I mean, again, that is more, that's just more evidence for, like, this definitely needed more space.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the fact that neither one was really able to be given the weight that they needed shows the, like, there was not enough page space to really tackle that. But I think it's worthy to note that that's a major distinction between, like, British and English crime fiction as opposed to American crime fiction, in which, like, in Sherlock Holmes, it's like, there's a guy dead in this room. We must solve this locked-cased murder. And in, like, the Maltese Falcon and, you know, which kind of was one of the early American... American,
that was
but
it.
in stuff like that, it's usually like... I need you to go find this girl. And then he'll, like, go to find the girl, and it's like, but all this money was taken. And he's like, well, that's weird. I wonder what that's about, too. And there's a dead guy. And it's like, okay. And now what? And, like, the case, there isn't just, like, one thing that he's trying to solve. It, like, it becomes, like, a mare's nest that he has to, like, wade through. And I think that's what makes American detective fiction what it is.
My impression of American detective fiction is that it was very specifically a response to European mystery novels.
Yeah.
Where the detective is the lens through which you're investigating this mystery and clues are being presented. And at the end of it, you have the big parlor scene where they get everybody together and they go over the case. And maybe you've solved it before the detective has.
Right.
Well,
and that the American detective stories were a response to that and going like, it's never that clean and simple.
Right.
Some mysteries don't have answers. Like it's just this crazy rat's nest of shit that happens.
Yeah, it's not like CSI. There's just not like jizz on everything in a jizz computer that you can plug all the jizz into. Like the real world crime fiction is like real world police work is a lot different than that. A lot of the evidence that you gather is completely useless.
But there's still that kind of through line of I have this case and I'm going to solve it.
Well, I think I think the thing is this. Like, Hammett wrote a very famous essay called The Simple Art of Murder, in which he eviscerated the British tradition of mystery and espoused his own beliefs, which is really, this is a character-driven narrative. The American detective fiction is called detective fiction and not crime fiction.
Or mystery.
Because... it's driven by the character. And so a lot of times you will have like, oh, here is the thing. You know, person walks in. I need you to find my sister. Okay, along the way, well, there was this other weird shit happening, and then somebody died, and then this guy tried to contact me, and I woke up and he's dead, and I'm, you know.
I can name like at least 10 Robert B. Parker Spencer novels in which he has solved the case he was hired for within the first third of the book, but it unveils a new problem.
But I think that that's the problem with Hawaiian Dick is that if this is supposed to be a character-driven story, we don't get enough of Byrd's character.
That's what I was driving at. Is that I think you fix this by giving Byrd needs a stronger characterization.
Yeah,
and I think we get that by getting, like I was talking about before, the plotting, watching him. His methodology, watching him go about his business. Is he a
good detective? Like, we really don't know.
Exactly. And that's the trick. Like, you get all these great scenes with Marlowe in all of Chandler's books where he's like, you're in his car with him. You're going to places. He's like, I'm going to go and talk to this guy now. Now I'm going to go and talk to this guy. I'm going to go and talk to this guy because maybe he saw something. Oh, he runs the club that does this. Or he's a known car thief, so I'm going to talk to him. And so you get a sense for the fact that he's a guy that's willing to fucking put himself in an uncomfortable situation and ask questions that nobody else wants him to ask. You never get that from Byrd.
I think you were right, Joe, earlier when you said that one of the strengths of comic books is you can do things like just spend a panel or two, like, okay, he's at the library, like he's in the records office, like he's digging up all this stuff, and just go through it really quick and not really have to deal with it. But one of the strengths of detective fiction is that you are doing those things, and you get to like listen to the narrator's thought process as they're like, I'm gonna go check out this thing, and I gotta figure out this, and I don't know what's going on with this other thing. Like, you kind of have that decompressed time with them where you're learning their thought process, and they're going through things, trying to figure it out and digging up pieces. And it's almost too easy to just kind of gloss over that. And I think that that's where this story loses some of its momentum.
It's definitely a balance between the two. Yeah. Because you don't want to, like, you know, over-narrate the detective or have him think too often. And something I mean, the Spencer novels are... The Robert B. Parker's Spencer novels, I think, are, like, some of the height of detective fiction.
Oh, yeah.
And something I love about them is, like, you'll have a whole page that is just a singular column of dialogue because every character's dialogue is written on another line, and he never uses, like, I exclaimed or, like,
no. It's very natural.
I said, he said. I said, he said. And it's very, like, repetitive for a reason because it gets you to just, like, read through the dialogue really quickly, and then you'll turn the page, and it'll just be a bulk paragraph of text explaining, like, where he's going next, what he was thinking. And it's the flip-flopping, like, back and forth between the two styles that breaks the pacing up in that kind of work.
I think that's where you make up for the... I like the idea of leaving out the narration. I think you make up for that by... You have the page with a panel on it going... Showing Byrd going to the places, making the phone calls, doing the legwork... And then when he has the interaction, you say, I checked you out. Yeah. I did, you know, like, your buddy down at Public Records was all too willing to give me the information on you, chump.
Well,
and something like that. And so it gives you this nice kind of backfill because I like the idea of going, because one of the things even the narration does is it doesn't always give you the information because sometimes the detective doesn't know what they're going to do until they get there and just play it by ear. And that's one of the great... And I think Byrd has that sensibility about him. I think he's fast on his feet and he's quick-witted. And the thing that kind of disappointed me about this is that you don't see, like, the steps in between. You don't see a guy that seems pretty methodical. You don't see any of his method.
But you get to see him react to stuff really quickly, which I thought was cool in the scene where the gangster comes to him and is in his house.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want you to find this person. And he, like, already knows that person's dead. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll find him. They're not in the car in the driveway right now. That's totally weird. Like, I love that he doesn't...
Yeah, and that was a great moment. Yeah. And I think if we had more of that, like, I think it's a good character. It's a great setting. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of cool elements at play here, and they just don't all move together in the right way in this first story.
Yeah.
And for all I know, by the second story, like, he's fixed all of those problems, and it works a hell of a lot better.
I think it comes down to when I read a book, there have definitely been books that I've read that I'm like, this is broken.
Yeah.
Like, this does not work. Like, they left this out and they were too in a hurry to get to this.
Or there's no story here. It's just all
there's
boobs.
No story. Yeah, exactly, right? Gen 13. But
it's a story about boobs.
That's
what it's about.
Let me tell you something. My 13-year-old self was incredibly grateful for Gen 13 for all those boobs.
That's why they call it Gen 13.
And Danger Girl. But Danger Girl is aware of itself in a way that Gen 13 was not.
That doesn't mean it didn't have boobs in it.
No, it did. But, like, I definitely think that for me personally, there's nothing in this story that breaks it. Like, all the elements are there. They just need to be massaged a little bit into place.
I definitely agree with you on that.
I
want to throw out one quick aside.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, I might be fucking it up a little bit, but the golden age of science fiction is 12. And I think to a certain extent that can be true of comic books.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That has nothing to do with Hawaiian Dick, but just in reference to the whole Gen 13 thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I remember those days fondly.
There's a lot that you can get away with dick and fart jokes or boobs and violence.
Right.
When your target demographic is a 12-year-old.
Right.
I did want to mention, though, one other thing that you see a lot in detective fiction that didn't get used here and I think would have been really helpful was the detective always has someone to go talk through the case with.
Yes.
Like Spencer has at least like 5 people he talks through cases with. He's got Susan and Hawk and Quirk and
my favorite is Hawk, though.
And like all these, people to go talk through the case with. And if Byrd had just had one scene where he sits down with Mo near the end and they just talk through the whole case and he's like, here's what I know, here's what I can prove, here's what I don't know, here's what I need to find out, you would have been able to build to that last climax a little bit stronger.
I agree, absolutely.
And I think that it just that's one thing that people forget in the detective novel is sometimes you just gotta recap everything.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the role that I was hoping Kahami would fill.
Oh yeah, she totally could have filled that.
Especially with the end of opening Byrd Investigations and her becoming the executive assistant and whatnot. That is what I wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted him to have somebody to bounce things off of and say, okay, well, now I need to go do this.
Yeah. It would have saved you from having to do internal monologue, but it would have still given you the information you needed.
Well,
it would have been cool.
Which would have been awesome.
I did want to, quick before we move on to recommendations, note that, did you guys read the foreword by James Syme?
I did not. I meant to come back and
Did you see the
read
picture of him?
No.
Did you recognize him?
Not
from a comic book that we read?
No.
Let me look it up before you say
familiar.
What it is.
Okay. Everybody look at it.
I'm flipping it real quick. No, I do not recognize him.
Okay. There's a villain in Invincible named Isotope. And that is the man that villain is based on. They look identical. It is Isotope.
It has been so long since I've read that.
Yeah. And
keeping in mind that I wasn't on the Invincible episode.
That's true. Because I think I talked about this on the Invincible episode too, but that guy owns a comic book store in San Francisco called Isotope Comics. That is really cool. And
actually, I looked at that picture and I was like, that dude looks like a Centauri, which fucking dates me.
I don't know what that is.
It's a reference to Babylon 5.
Okay. But when my good friend Nick and I went down to San Francisco, a lot of our trip around the city of San Francisco was based on the fact that we went there first, played the guess all the artists on the toilet seat game because there's just a bunch of toilet seats that comic book artists have drawn on, and he quizzed us on our comic book artist knowledge. And then he was like, what are you guys doing in town? And we were like, we have no idea. And he's like, here, let me fill up an entire page of cool stuff you guys can do.
That's awesome.
And it was amazing. It was a great host to that city. So if you're ever in San Francisco and you get a chance to check it out, I highly recommend Isotope Comics.
Nice.
Yeah, and sometimes when they do events and signings, because he used to be a bartender, he'll have a bar in the comic book store. So very cool.
Awesome.
So recommendation. Who wants to go first?
I
Joe?
want to go first because I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
So
you brought Gen 13.
I did.
We're so
the first 10 issues.
First 400 issues of Gen 13.
It was amazing. Yeah. Don't worry, you'll read them all in about an hour.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's all the same.
No, I actually. So Scott Snyder and Sean Murphy just wrapped up their 10-part Vertigo book called The Wake. And I saw this and I was like, I don't know what this is about. I'm going to read it. And I read it. And I read it all of it today. And I fucking really enjoyed it. I
didn't realize issue 10 was out yet. I've been waiting for it.
Came out last week.
Yeah. And so basically, a cetologist who is a whale biologist, specifically,
obviously. I don't know why you explained that.
Specifically, a whale biologist that studies whale song in the beginning of the book, she is approached by somebody from Department of Homeland Security.
A musical cetologist?
A musical cetologist and a shark biologist, and they all go off and have wacky adventures. No. Basically,
I want to read that book.
Read that.
She's approached by this agent from the Department of Homeland Security. He says, we found this really weird sound, and we want you to come and investigate it. And, this is why you should come and work for us. And
based on a true story.
This
is Star Trek 4.
Yeah, it is. And
then there's actually a mystery whale.
There is a mystery whale that they actually cite. They actually talk about it in this book.
Chard is shrugging his shoulders.
Shrugging.
It is so basically what
just
it
Google
is,
the mystery whale. This is creepy as shit.
What Toby is talking
Google it.
about is this whale. The whales have songs, right? And their songs are conversations, pretty much. And there are responses. There are like questions and queries and statements and responses.
Different whale pods sing different songs.
And they usually sing in between this very specific range of like between 12 and
like
20
humpback
hertz.
whales and stuff, like whales we know about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, okay.
There is this random lone whale.
And they know it's the same one.
Yeah. Basically, at 52 hertz, having a conversation with itself. It does not talk like any other whale they've ever heard. They do not know what it's doing. All they know is that there's this singular whale
singing way, way, way higher than any other whale
whales.
fucking by itself.
And
sending
that
out
whale actually plays a part in this book.
How old is this whale?
I don't know.
What was that?
How old is the whale?
I don't know. I think they know it's been getting older because its voice has been getting, I think, deeper over time, but 20, maybe 30 years.
Wow.
They've been tracking this thing for a long time, and I don't know that they've ever actually seen it. They've
No. They underwater microphones.
Spend a lot of time on the internet tonight searching about the whale.
So
let's go find it.
I know, right? That's what I'm like. Let's go run a boat.
It's not a transformer, guys. All right.
Maybe.
You don't know that.
Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's a GoBot.
So they take this biologist to the base camp, which is this ghost drilling platform, where she finds out that there's several other people there that she was not told about. And they basically are like, okay, well, we don't really want you to study a sound. We want you to study this really weird creature we found. And it's a deadly killer mermaid. And that's pretty much all I'm going to give you.
So it's like Deep Blue Sea, but with mermaids.
I'm saying mermaid, but really that's only what it looks like.
Okay.
Is
it actually a merman?
It is a merman. It is a merman. It's actually Aquaman.
Yeah.
It's Aquaman. It's a Vertigo book. It's Aquaman. No. Yes. So
it's never the merman.
But the cool thing about this is that the first 5 issues, which comprise book 1, happen, and at the end of book 1, something happens you're totally not expecting at all.
Mm-hmm. Aliens.
And you get this really weird. You get
I'm
a
just
lot of
guessing
really.
If it actually is aliens, nobody say that I spoiled it.
No, I will say it's not aliens. No.
Okay.
You spoiled it.
I'm always worried about that.
Just randomly guessing the right. It's the butler.
That is happening.
It's really cool. I don't want to talk too much about what it is, but it really changes the feel of the story, and it's something that if done poorly could have been hokey, but it was not. Like,
is there a time jump then before the second one?
Yeah, no, there's a time jump, and I won't say any more than that.
Yeah,
but like,
I just wanted to, because that's not a spoiler. That's well known.
Yeah, no, there's a time jump between book 1 and book 2.
Yeah.
I won't tell you how long it is. Mm-hmm. When the New 52 came out, Scott Snyder started writing Batman, and everybody told me it was awesome, and I was like, you guys fucking don't know anything. And then I read it, and it's awesome. And let me tell you something. Scott Snyder deserves a lot of the praise that he gets, because he pulls off this story really, really well. And it's a story that could have gone wrong at any one of a number of places. But there are some incredibly cool elements to this story that, I mean, I could not stop. Like, I was at work today waiting to go home, and like, I just could not stop reading it. And I finished it, and I looked up, and the shop was empty. Like, everybody had gone home except the guys that I work with, like the supervisors, and they had all gone outside, and I was like, hello? Like, that's how immersed I was in this book. So,
That's happened to me.
Yeah, I want to note too that like a lot of people praise Snyder for Batman and like what he did with Batman, kind of like to change the character and like reinvent him in the New 52. And some people were kind of not happy that he wasn't really a detective character, but they had Detective Comics for that. Snyder was really writing a horror book starring Batman. And what Snyder does better than anything else that he's ever written is he writes horror well. And that's his bread and butter.
This is a horror book in which the horror is the idea rather than like spooky, scary shit jumping out at you.
And it's not like torture porn.
Like this is not horror in the way you would think about it. It's this idea of something he sets up a situation wherein the main characters are facing something that they cannot possibly fucking win against. And then he sets up a series of circumstances that allow you to kind of explore that idea out to the end. And it's really super cool, man. Like, I'm super impressed with the way he did it. And Sean Murphy's art is fucking killer.
Cool.
It's some of the best art I've seen in a while. So,
cool.
The Wake.
Cade,
so good.
What would you like to read?
So I was looking over Brian's list, and something I hadn't realized that was on it before. I don't know why. But it's a book that I hadn't read previously, and yet I always look at the variant cover that we have on the wall here. And this is a Marvel book. Chard's looking at the wall.
It's probably Captain Britain and the MI-13.
It is. So this is a book that spawns out...
I spoiled it, I'm sorry.
This is a book that... No, I was setting you up to guess.
Oh, okay, good.
This is a book that spawns out of Secret Invasion with the Skrull War back in 2008-ish at Marvel Comics. And this is basically a Britain... or looking at the Britain superheroes who are trying to save, that area rather than America and the Avengers. It's kind of like... Because Britain in the Marvel Universe is like the home of magic. And they have the passageway to the other world and whatnot. And they have Excalibur.
And the Captain Britain Corps. Like, this is a whole thing going back. Because there used to be a Marvel UK.
Yeah.
That was its own separate thing that established a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. And so this is like Britain's core superheroes and MI-13, which is the fictional, which is, like MI6, but for superhuman stuff and like magic research and whatnot.
Not magic, the X-Men character, but actual magic.
Yeah, actual magic.
Little, would that be small m magic?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. As opposed to like capital M magic, which would be a proper
with a Y
name with a Y. Confusing. I don't know.
Comics, everybody.
You just have to say X-Men, and people are like, "Oh yeah, confusing."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm so confused right now.
Yeah.
But
it's not like
why
that,
is there X-Men in my pitch?
Yeah.
So basically, this is after Secret Invasion, picking up with Captain Britain.
Well, it actually starts during the Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
During the Secret Invasion, with Captain Britain and MI-13 kind of going into all the crazy shit that happens in Britain, the home of magic.
I do also want to add to Kate's pitch by saying this book has one issue where it's Doom and Dracula, right? And they're standing on the moon, and they're like, "We should divide the Earth. We need to get in there and take Britain. We need to."
I haven't actually read the second story arc,
so
but I know that they appear in it.
There is a panel with Doom and Dracula on the moon planning to invade. I think it's just Britain. So if that doesn't sell you on wanting to read a book about Captain Britain, I don't really know what will.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because why not?
It is. I read 2 issues of it today. It's pretty solid stuff.
Yeah, it was canceled way too early, I think.
Yeah, well,
cool ideas.
He kind of knew that it was going to be canceled after the 3rd arc, so he used that to finish up, and he ended the series exactly where he wanted to from the very beginning. So he felt that it had a good ending there, and then he even picks up on it a little later in one of their other series that they do together.
Which writer is this?
Somebody with the internet, can you answer that?
I don't have the internet, but I also cannot remember his name.
Well, Joe can look it up for us, and I can do my pitch, question mark?
Go for it.
So I am also pitching a Marvel book. It's by a writer who's a favorite on the show. I am pitching Captain America, Castaway in Dimension Z by Rick Remender. And this is the first 10 issues of the Captain America series that has been ongoing, and I know they're going to be changing Captain America's pretty soon, so I don't know if they're going to be renumbered.
Spoilers. Yeah, I think they're going to change the numbers.
But this is the Marvel Now Captain America, and it basically starts out with Captain America, Steve Rogers, like fighting some random ass bad guy in New York, and then he's like, a job well done. Now to go relax with my girlfriend. And he steps onto a subway train and gets kidnapped by Arnim Zola and taken to another dimension where he's going to be like tortured and used in science experiments and shit. And he escapes from Zola's like citadel in Dimension Z and steals this baby that Zola has that he is also experimenting on. And then he's trapped there for like a decade plus with this kid that he is slowly raising to maturity.
It's like 20 years.
I think it's 12 years.
I think the article I was reading said 10 because I was reading a bunch about the whole Fire Rick Remender hashtag.
Right.
Which came about because of this series.
But it's a really cool, like, crazy SF series. It's drawn by John Romita Jr. It's a lot of fun. It's the first 10 issues of the series, which is collected in 2 trades. And I think this is the first Captain America book that I actually, like, sat down and started reading that wasn't part of an event or just, like, some random issue. And I enjoyed the hell out of it, as I do so much of Rick Remender's stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of in the same way that Mark Waid's Daredevil was a reaction to like the dark, kind of gritty Daredevil. This was kind of a reaction to the spy, clandestine,
like
Steve
very politically
Rogers.
oriented, like Brubaker run that had been going on for a long time,
which is also great, but it was
very
like,
different.
Yeah, it was like, what if we just made him into like a crazy interdimensional superhero again? Like, or like a superhero again? Like, what if we fought crazy villains?
There was a period where Captain America was like crazy science villains all the time and weird like whatever crazy science fiction plots.
You look at some of his best villains; they're like, the head of AIM, the head of Hydra, they're these
evil science villains. Probably has to do a little bit with the fact that he was brought back in the 60s, and that's like a very 60s thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
mad scientists.
A lot of fun. Great series. Well written, well drawn.
Yeah.
Check it out.
So before you do your recommendation, Captain Britain and MI-13 was written by Paul Cornell with pencils by Leonard Kirk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's right.
So, Chard, what did you bring this week?
Well, I brought...
is it from Image?
Yes, it is week
so
whatever.
Weird. Damn it, I lost a bet.
You know what? I need to look up what week I'm on, really, to be honest. 'Cause
15.
It's getting embarrassing saying week whatever every
Isn't
week.
it 6?
I
think it's 8.
It's like
I think
9.
it's almost
8
10.
or 9.
None of us know.
I've got $1 on 8.
Okay.
Is it
we'll look
Bimple?
it up. It is not. It's a book that's been recommended before, and it's an ongoing series that's still going on right now, and I have fallen behind on the series, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to catch up. I'm going to get caught up to what's going on. And I read half of what exists right now today. And so I'm pitching that. I'm pitching 20 issues of Chew. So the first 4 trades of the John Layman and Rob Gilroy book. Guillory. That's what it is. Book Chew, which is about this detective who's a cybopath, meaning if he eats things, he can see everything, like where they've been. Like if he eats an orange, he sees like the grove that it was, grown in, and the people that harvested it, and like where it went. And so he has this like telepathic power.
So it's kind of like that thing where like somebody touches something and they like see its past and where it's been. But he has to taste it.
Yeah, he has to eat it and taste it. Yeah,
it actually is Chiba-path. When we pitched it last time, I was not sure between the two, and I went and looked, and Chiba means food in Italian. So he's a Chiba-path.
Okay.
He's a food mind.
And there's other guys that have other kinds of powers in the book. There's like a guy who he's like a volopath or something. Like if he eats food all the time, like as long as he's eating, he's the smartest man on the planet. And there's other ones too. I can't remember. There's the woman that can describe food so well that while you're reading her writing, you can taste it.
And these are all food-oriented powers?
Yeah, they're all like food-oriented telepaths, or like psychic people.
The Food Vengers.
Like, they're not telepathic, but they have some kind of impact on
So like a very, very specific kind of mind management.
Yeah, And the art is very cartoony. There's a lot of like, kind of elongation and exaggeration, and people kind of swell up when they're angry, and like there's definitely this cartoonist feel to it. I think the art is phenomenal in the series. As with a lot of books, the art is what drew me to the series, and the writing kept me entertained because it's very funny. I think this book is hilarious. I reread the first 20 issues, like I said today, and they were killing me. And the reason I started rereading this was because last week, a single issue one-shot, which I'm going to pitch alongside these 20 issues, is the one-shot Warrior Chicken Pollo, which is a character that you'll meet in the story, so read that at the end, but is basically this like alternate universe story set in the universe of Chew, or with the characters from Chew. And it was so fucking funny. That I don't want to spoil Warrior Chicken Pollo for you guys, like what that character is, so I can't really describe what that issue is, but it had me really laughing because it was just this fun one shot. So I want to pitch that as well. People should definitely pick that up, even if they haven't read that much Chew. It doesn't spoil anything because it's kind of this alternate thing. But yeah, I think the series is really fun. It's been pitched several times before. It's a great Image book. It's about 40 some issues in, so I think there's probably close to 8 trades, if not 8 trades, and people should check it out. It's an Image series, $10, first trade. Go get it.
Awesome.
But we're not reading just the first, we're reading 4.
No, yeah, I'm pitching the first 4, if we just got, because it's only 20 issues, and it reads really fast. Each arc is basically 5 issues, and so that's 4 trades.
Nice.
Yeah.
Joe?
I will throw my vote to Chew.
Cade?
I have been waiting for this series to finish since the first arc was over. I'm voting for The Wake.
I'm going to vote for Captain Britain, which I think is 2 weeks in a row I voted for Cade's book.
Yeah, some good recs. I'm also voting for The Wake. I can't not vote for that. I mean, I don't think that causes a tie, right? I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying. Right? Chris, who was on a couple episodes, he was on our Invincible episode. He's been on Top of the Stack. He works at the shop that I used to work at, and he has been recommending this series to me since the day it came out. And I have ignored him thoroughly because I am a bad person. But now that it's all done, I definitely want to read that.
Yep.
So
okay. Awesome. All right. So next week, The Wake Volumes 1 and 2.
Yeah, all 10 issues
1 through 10.
Yeah.
There's there probably the 10th issue just came out, so there will probably not be a collection of the second 5
unless you're checking this out in the archives, in which case there
totally will be. But
unless the world has gone to hell.
I believe that I'm almost positive that the first 5 have been collected.
Yeah, there's one trade.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, so I'm going to hold my breath for whatever kind of like ultimate edition they put out. Because like, this is definitely something I want to own. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
See?
Okay, fuck off. Get out of here.
All right.
See you guys next time.
Catch you guys next time. Yeah.
We love you. Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Me From the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.